Okay, hey guys. Welcome to our fourth video. This is going to be over adolescent development. So the period of life that you're in right now, some stuff is happening development-wise. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what we're learning. Okay, so we have our learning targets. It's not as many as the infancy and childhood development, but a lot of stuff is still happening. We're going to talk about physical challenges with adolescence, so some more maturation. We're going to talk about moral development, and then we're also going to talk about sex and gender influence, and I have a really cool warm-up for us to do after you watch this video. So physical development, we all are probably pretty familiar with this, but this is when puberty begins, woohoo, right between ages 11 and 14. This is when the sex organs mature. So think back to like 5th grade, they're starting to get you ready for middle school, and they're like, okay, boys go in this room, girls go in this room. We're going to watch the video about how our body develops, right? They want to get you informed on the changes that are going to be happening to you physically. Now, puberty also, yes, there's physical changes, but it also impacts self-image. So there's important implications for the way adolescents feel about themselves when they're going through puberty. So a lot of times self-image can be greatly affected when one physically matures. Okay, so a lot of times we get oily hair, oily skin, acne, all of those things can affect self-image because a lot of people don't like that. They might not feel pretty. A lot of times, some girls that develop faster than others and they develop breasts early on, sometimes can feel self-conscious about that because they have bigger boobs than other people at their age and they're still pretty young. So a lot of self-image can be affected through puberty, through physical development, right? You can probably think back to when you're going through puberty and you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? What's happening on my face, my hair, my body? You can become self-conscious with all of that. Some other stuff happens with cognitive development. So if you think back to our video with Piaget, we are starting in our formal operational stage. So we're able to reason hypothetically. We're able to look at the consequences of our actions, right? We're able to start weighing pros and cons of should I do this? Should I not do this? This leads to greater understanding and comprehension of broad moral principles, which is going to lead us into moral development. How do we decide if we're going to do the right thing, the wrong thing? What does morality look like to a young child versus adolescent versus adult? We're about to check it out. Okay, moral development. Our main guy behind this is Kohlberg. He believed that moral reasoning helps guide our judgments and behaviors, and proposed dilemmas help people reason at different levels. Okay, so this theory assumes that people move through the levels in a fixed order, right? So you're going to start in level 1, then you'll move to level 2, then you'll move to level 3. However, what you'll notice here with these levels is there's no real age that matches up with the levels. However, it is believed that one cannot reach the highest level of moral development until at least 13, because cognitively you're not there until at least 13. Okay, you can't understand it before that point. So like a 7-year-old is not going to be able to be at that last level of moral development because they're not there cognitively. But you'll see that sometimes some people reach the last level early. Some people, they say don't even reach the last level. So we'll break it down. Yes, so we help people progress through the levels by posing moral dilemmas to solve. Okay, levels of moral development. So the first one is going to be pre-conventional. This is where you perform actions based on rewards or punishments. Okay, this is usually found in very young children. It's usually a selfish way of actions. It's very self-centered when it comes to morality. Basically, am I going to do something because I'm going to get rewarded for it? Am I not going to do something because I'm going to get punished for it? Am I going to do something even though I know it's wrong, but I'm not going to get punished for it, right? It's really a self-centered morality. We're just thinking about self here. And like I said, it's usually with younger children. But we can move into level 2, which is conventional morality. Now we are including other people. So you have an interest in pleasing others and doing what is right by social laws. Okay, so peers can have a big influence here. It's more than self at this point. So family, loved ones, society as a whole. Also, think back to middle school. If maybe you got yourself around the wrong people and they started, making bad decisions, but you wanted to fit in, so you started making bad decisions too, that would be the conventional stage. Okay, because you're interested in pleasing the other people in your friend group and doing what they do. Okay, but this can go the other way. So think about in middle school, like I was the opposite. I was the quiet, good kid that I was going to do what the teacher said regardless, because that was the rule in the classroom. Okay, so we can see that at a conventional level there as well. And then post-conventional, this is where we include a higher reasoning to guide behavior. This is why young children can't fit into this level. But now we're starting to think even bigger picture besides ourselves and our loved ones. We're thinking about big things like justice, equality, basic human rights. Okay, so this could be the level of morality that you might technically be breaking the rules, but you would justify it as I'm now creating equality for someone else, or I'm helping someone else out with their basic rights. Kohlberg would say that you move through these in a fixed way, but he would also say that some people don't even ever reach the last level of morality, and then some people might reach it as early as 18. It really varies from person to person. Another thing with post-conventional is the idea that you live by the golden rule. And like I just said, Kohlberg didn't think that many people made it to this level of moral reasoning. So social development. So our boy Erik Erikson, which is literally his first name spelled exactly the same with a son at the end, he's going to look at social development of yes, adolescence, but he's going to break it down for all age groups. And his idea is he's going to take a psychosocial approach, which involves our changes in our interactions and understanding of one another, as well as our own knowledge and understanding of ourselves as members of society. So that's a lot there. But basically what he's going to do is you understanding yourself, you understanding others, and understanding how we all work together in a society. He's going to break that down into different stages. Okay, so basically he believes that you pass through a stage when you have resolved a conflict. Okay, so once you resolve or address that issue, then he would say that you move on to the next stage. Now, with these, we are going to have age groups here. Okay, so moral development is really the only area of development that doesn't have set age groups. Everywhere else, we're really going to see set age groups. So let's dive in. So we are going to start all the way with 0 to 18 months. And the name of this stage would be trust versus mistrust. You're always going to see on the left the term for being successful in this stage, which would be trust, and then the term for not being successful in this stage, which would be mistrust. Let me break it down. So the idea in this stage is, can I trust the world? So obviously from 0 to 18 months, you're dependent on other people to meet your physical needs and your need for love, right? No little baby, 6 months, 10 months, 18 months can take care of itself. So to be successful in this stage, to resolve that conflict of the question, can I trust the world? If parents care and you become attached, so this brings you back to secure attachment, you'll develop a sense of trust and be able to predict things. Predictability. If you cry, mom's going to be there. If you're happy, mom's going to laugh with you. But if there is no resolution, or you come to the conclusion that you cannot trust the world, a lot of times that comes from inconsistent or lacking care. That will cause an infant to develop a sense of mistrust or be more paranoid with the world around him. Okay, so for example, this would be more along the lines with insecure attachment. So you'll see how some of the stuff in the past videos is going to link back to our stages of psychosocial development. Okay, the next one, we're moving from 18 months to around 3 years old. This is the idea of autonomy versus shame and doubt. Okay, and the question that we're trying to answer is, do I have control over my life? So again, it's going to involve the parents, and we should realize that it's going to involve the parents, because think about a child from 18 months to 3. They cannot survive on their own, right? So just like the last one, we needed the parents' involvement, this one is also going to be based on the parents a lot. If parents set boundaries, yet also let the children make decisions, they will develop a will or a sense of independence. That would be autonomy, okay? That would be, they're solving the question of, do I can have control over my life? However, if the parents are overly restrictive of the child, children will become unable to assert themselves, but parents could go the other way. If parents are too lenient, Children could become overly demanding and controlling. Also, a child could have that sense of shame and self-consciousness, which is what you see in the other part of the stage, right? You have autonomy versus shame and doubt. Okay, stage number 3, initiative versus guilt. We're looking at ages 3 to 6. So we've got our, rude. We have our question that we're trying to answer. Am I capable of doing things for myself? And this is going to sound very similar, but this is more based on like imagination, developing, being curious, asserting their independence. So basically this again is based on the parents, because look at the age group. If parents react positively to these items, like the child imagining things, the child being curious to learn things, the child asserting independence, if the parents react positively to this, the child will feel confident to take risks and have self-confidence. You'll see that initiative there. However, if the parents react negatively, the child will lack self-sufficiency, have low self-esteem, and fear punishment. Okay, so think about, for example, a child has an imaginary friend and they talk to that imaginary friend. If the parents don't react well to that, you could produce some of this guilt, and you could see stuff that's going to happen in bullet point number 2. But if parents do react positively, the child feels confident and then is willing to take risks and have more self-confidence in the future. Okay, number 4, in industry versus inferiority. Okay, we're looking at ages 6 to 11. So we're getting into, elementary school, potentially, I think like 6th grade. Are you 11 in 6th grade? I think so, or 12, I can't remember. But it's the idea of, am I capable of doing things socially? So now we're moving from a parent influence to more of a peer influence. And what happens in this stage is there's a lot of comparing self with others in a social, in an academic aspect. So for example, if you are successful in the stage or you offer the solution of industry, you can feel that you can do tasks, you have a sense of pride, and that you can fit in. However, if you're comparing and you feel inferior to others, that could lead to you feeling like you're not as good as others, you don't have the same academic aspects, you don't feel like you fit in, and that could be developed from this stage of 6 to 11. Now, this is the stage that you're in currently, right? Because we are all, not me, but you, are all in between the ages of 12 and 20. And you see that our age gap is starting to widen here. And the whole thing that we're looking at is identity versus role confusion. And I feel like a lot of us are probably going to be able to resonate with this. But the question that we're trying to answer is, who am I and where is my place in this world? Okay, so this is the transition from child to adult. You're trying to discover who you are, what your strengths are, and what kind of roles you are best suited to play. Being successful in this stage, you're going to have a sense of who you are and a commitment to future adult roles. So when it comes to find that career, to pursue adulthood, you're going to have confidence in that you are in a role that shows your strengths. As opposed to, this could also lead to confusion on what role to play if you're not able to identify your strengths. It can lead to an unstable identity if you haven't figured out who you are. And you could start adopting socially unacceptable roles because you're trying to figure out, what do I do if I don't have these acceptable strengths? Then I've got to do something unacceptable, I guess. So it's so important in this stage to move past it and to have a better sense of adulthood. We need to figure out who we are. And I think that's why adolescents struggle a lot during middle school to high school years is, we're looking at other people to be like, okay, what's my identity? What are my strengths? Right. And some of us leave this time period and we're like, I don't know. And that leads to role confusion. As opposed to truly knowing your identity, who you are, what your strengths are, and how that can benefit you in the future. So, okay. Oh, yes, there's more. I forget. So there's also more that goes into this stage, because think about how complex this time period in your life is. A lot of times what you're also going to feel here is pressure, right? Maybe even as I'm talking to you, you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. I don't know what my strengths are. I don't know who I am, right? And so that adds this level of pressure because you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what are my strengths? Okay, a lot of times we separate ourselves from parents. We tend to rely more on our peer group for finding the solution to this question. It's a pivotal time period in a person's life, and it's paving the way for continued growth and future development in personal relationships. So this is what I'm probably going to start class with, and the gender thing. But Erickson believes that we have to find ourselves and figure out our roles before we can truly express love. Do you agree with that? Or do you disagree with that? Because you're going to see love and intimacy in the next stage. We're moving right along. We have intimacy versus isolation. So this is, like 20 to 30. So your girl's in this one. So you're answering the question, can I love and be loved? So you're pondering the idea of entering a close, loving, personal relationship. A lot of times we're looking for marriage in this stage. Being successful or finding the solution to this question would be you develop intimacy and a sense of connectedness with whoever you're pursuing that relationship with. However, this can go the opposite way, and you can develop isolation. So you start to draw into self, and you avoid close emotional contact, which is interesting because that's what you're searching for, but you start to avoid it if you can't answer the question of, can I love or be loved? So a lot of times you might think, well, that's not true. Like, people are still pursuing relationships. They are, but what you see a lot in this time in your life is people are not fully investing in these relationships. Like, for example, so a lot of people in this stage want to be married. They want to feel that close, intimate relationship, but they're not offering that, right? You might still find these people in dating relationships and having romantic relationships with other people, but it's lacking the intimacy because it's not this idea of hi, I fully know you and I fully love you, because that's kind of what we're really looking for in this stage. Okay, so you could still be in a dating relationship and still develop this idea of isolation, of drawing into self and avoiding kind of that deep, emotional, vulnerable relationship. Okay, moving on. Look at how big this age group is here. We're now looking at most of adulthood, so 30 to 65. I think, this is your main working time. And so the question is, am I productive and giving something back to the world? So you want this sense that you're making a difference through children, jobs, community, and involvement, and all that stuff. So, to feel successful in the stage or to offer that solution, you could have that feeling of being happy with life. You've made a difference. You have a sense of accomplishment. You've worked hard, but you've also taken care of your kids. You've worked hard at your career, but you're also giving back to the community. You have that sense of accomplishment. However, sometimes, we could get to the stage and feel worthless and be so preoccupied with your own needs. And so a lot of times people will have what's called a midlife crisis. And they're like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing for my entire life? None of this is meaningful. I'm having a crisis, right? And that plays out in multiple different ways. But that's something that we can see in this stage. And then lastly, we have integrity versus despair. This is 65 plus. So we're thinking retired, towards the end of life here. And the big question is, has it all been worth it? And so you're starting to reflect and review your life. And it can go one of two ways. You could look back on life happily, having a strong sense of self-accomplishment, being like, yes, I worked hard, but I took care of my kids and I had a loving relationship and I figured out who I was. Or this could develop into a sense of despair, looking back on life with frustration, regret, disappointment. Why did I do that? Why did I waste my time here? Why didn't I spend more time with my kids? Why didn't I go see my parents more? Stuff like that. It gets real heavy right here at the end, right? So in this video, we broke down physical development of adolescence by talking about puberty. We talked about moral development. We reviewed cognitive development, that you're in that formal operational stage. And then we talked about Erickson's psychosocial development stages. We started all the way at 0 and worked all the way through 65 plus. We'll review this in class, but make sure that you took your notes on the correct slides. And we've got one more video after this. It's adulthood. And then we are close to closing out the development unit. So stay tuned, friends.